Hi all, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be continuing on our little tax series. And this time actually we're going to take a look at some of the common documents that you might need during tax season. We're going to actually take a look at a couple of my historical documents wherever I could find and redact them. So with that being said, my name is Nathan Mohan, and if y'all are new here, I used to advise companies on how to allocate their finances, but during that time, I learned that people might need a little bit more help with their personal finances. With that being said, let's get into it. So there are, I would say, 4 different key documents that can be helpful for you as you start looking at taxes, or that you will pretty commonly see if you're looking to complete your taxes. The most common of those documents are going to be pay stubs and W-2s. Pay stubs aren't actually really used for preparation of taxes, but they are really helpful to see where your money is going as it gets paid out by your employer. You can see what amount is going to taxes, what amount is going to insurance, what amount is going to any other expense that you can see. The second document, which is very common, is your W-2. This is usually filed by your employer and basically summarizes a lot of the information that'll likely be on your pay stub. But the difference between a pay stub and a W-2 is a W-2 is well regulated. The other couple of documents that we'll go over today are a couple examples of 1099s. 1099s show where income comes from. And so if you say, for example, trade stocks, any sort of stock that you sell and make money off of or lose money on will be reported on a 1099. And then 1098, which has certain expenses that are notated and are important for taxes. This is a way that you can take deductions. With that being said, let me jump into my laptop and we can all take a look together. So the first document that we will be looking at here is a pay stub. A pay stub basically shows over a period of time where your money that you've been paid by your employer is going to. So an example pay stub of mine, I got paid on this pay stub in December of 2022. And you can see at the top of the pay stub, all about my earnings for that given year. It has your earnings for the period, which my salary for those 2 weeks, and then it has year to date what I've been paid out in terms of salary, bonuses, etc. Now, beyond that, if you go into the next line, you can take a look at taxes. The first line here, OAS-DI, is effectively your Social Security tax, then federal withholding is income tax, and finally you have Medicare, which is Medicare taxes. And again, you can see what the tax rates are and the amount that has been withheld from your income across this period and year to date. The final line here that you'll see on the left-hand side is deductions. For me, this is a retirement account. And finally, you'll have a line here that has net pay. Now, you'll notice on the right-hand side, there are some other deductions that are coming through. And so there are pieces called imputed income. Imputed income usually means it's a fringe benefit or a benefit that's given by your employer that can often be taxable. And so for me, those are long-term disability and group term life insurance, and those get added up into my checks, which is great, but not necessarily taxed, to be very clear. The other piece here that is also noteworthy to call out is whenever the company pays for my 401k, my insurance, my disability, you can see here that that is all added up on the right-hand side. And so I can see how much my company paid for all of those things during this period and also year to date. And the final lines that you'll see here are my PTO accrual and my direct deposit. Next, let's check out my W-2. And for my W-2, you can see here, this is going to be the key document to rule them all for your income taxes. There will usually be a lot of personally identifying information in the first couple of boxes here, which you can see that I have effectively blurred out or redacted, but your social security number, your employer identification number, and then you get to some of the more interesting stuff, which is what are your wages, tips, other compensation, basically your gross income for the year in box number 1. Box number 2 has the amount of income tax the federal government has withheld from you. Box number 3 is the amount of wages, quote unquote, that are considered for Social Security tax. 4 is the amount of taxes that have been withheld from said wages. 5 is the same exercise that you did for Social Security wages, for Medicare wages and tips. And then 6 is the amount of Medicare taxes that have been withheld. Usually there are some identifying characteristics about your employer and yourself down below. And again, I've redacted those. And there are a bunch of other boxes down here that could be filled out. For example, tips, dependent care benefits, whatever you might have. And then usually on the right-hand side, there are specific codes. And those codes are indicative of different benefits slash income slash transfers that you might have made. For me, I had a couple of different codes here. Code C is it again that group term life insurance. The AA code basically indicates that I have given money to a specific type of retirement fund, and then DD is my employer's contributions also to a retirement plan. Okay, so we've covered W-2s and we've covered pay stubs. Let's go into a couple of examples of 1098s next. Again, 1098s are documents where you have a specific expense, and that expense may be deductible if you itemize your expenses, or even sometimes you could do it above the line. And so let's start off with a 1098 for my mortgage. So again, I redacted a lot of information here, but the most important thing that you will see on this document is a couple of these boxes filled out with details about my mortgage, but line item number 1 on mortgage interest received, pretty critical and pretty crucial here, because that's what's going to be deductible if I itemize my expenses. And then you can also see here box number 10, which has basically other expenses. And in my case, that's effectively tax. And if I scroll down, oftentimes there'll be summary statements on your 1098 from your mortgage company. And you can see here for me what exactly that ends up being with my interest payment down below, and again, my taxes paid, which is kind of convenient. All right, I'm whipping through these super fast, but the next one here is the student loan interest statement. I couldn't redact this properly for some reason. I don't know what was going on with the PDF, so I can't show you one of my own for student loans, but I can show you what a student loan interest statement looks like, which on the left-hand side, you're going to basically have, again, a bunch of identifying information about who's holding the loan, who you are. But on the right-hand side, this is going to be more important. The right-hand side is going to indicate how much student loan interest you pay. Again, this is usually an above-the-line deduction. So even if you are not itemizing your deductions, you will likely be able to take advantage of your student loan interest, basically offsetting at least a little bit of your income in a deduction. All right. We have one more type of tax document left, which is 1099s. 1099s, again, have to deal with income. All right, y'all. Well, it has happened. I fumbled a little bit. I did not record all these clips in optimal lighting, and there was a bit of camera battery issues. So there's gonna be a couple of clips that you'll see in this 1099 section that had to be re-recorded and are in different light. With that, let's get into it. One of the big flags with 1099s in particular is with 1099s, oftentimes taxes are not withheld from them. And it is your responsibility to make sure that if you have made a significant amount of money from 1099s, you are paying the federal government roughly on time. Else, usually what will end up happening is the federal government will charge you interest on whatever taxes you didn't pay them and may assess a penalty on you. Let's hop into our first 1099 NEC. With 1099 NECs, these are usually given to you if you are a contractor or non-employee actually making income from a specific company. And so instead of a W-2, you'll usually receive this. On the left-hand side of your 1099 NEC, it is standard information about you and who is paying you. And on the right-hand side, you'll notice that there is a line for compensation from whoever paid you. So they basically will have what their payment amount and your payment amount was. And then finally, if they withheld income tax, that will also be listed. And if they withheld state tax, that will also be listed. All right, our last 1099 forms will be of importance if you make any sort of investments. So you guys will see it pop up on the screen, my Charles Schwab account. Again, I've redacted a few things here, but not as much as some of the previous statements. And so if I scroll down, the first form that you see here is a form 1099 dividends. As a reminder, a dividend is when a stock basically pays out some of its net income to its shareholders, and dividends are always taxed. And so you can see here that my stocks paid me about $1.22 in dividends, which isn't that crazy. But usually these will be pretty long and extensive in terms of how these dividends are paid out. Now, you guys will see here, there is a cash liquidation distribution on one of the line items. Do not worry about this too much. This was a very idiosyncratic investment that I had made, which is why it's showing up here. Now, the next form that we're looking at is a 1099 INT, which is a tax document that you have to fill out whenever you get interest income. This includes interest from a bank, but for my brokerage, I received a little bit of interest. You can see here 61 cents, and it goes down all the way through. Now, to note, the other place where you'll see a 1099 being used is if you make any bond purchases. And so just keep that in mind as you go through your taxes. Now, the last tax document that you will see are 1099-Bs. These show up whenever you buy or sell securities. Of note here, the way that these are going to be sorted is by long-term and short-term purchases and sales. If you've only held a security for less than a year, that's a short-term sale. If you held it for longer than a year, it's a long-term sale, and it is taxed more favorably at the capital gains tax rate. I have a very short video on capital gains taxes here if you guys are curious or interested as to why that is what it is. Now, with that being said, usually a 1099-B will be pretty verbose and will have every single share that you've sold or disposed of, and basically the amount that you made off of all of those. Oftentimes there'll be a summary at the end of the document where you can take a look and see a quick summary of what you've sold, what you bought, and it might be easier oftentimes to file your taxes that way. I tend to go line by line because that's usually an option, but up to you on how you want to handle it. And remember, on capital gains taxes in particular, you are only gonna be taxed on the amount of profit that you gained. And if you've taken a loss, oftentimes that will actually help offset some of your taxes. All right, y'all. That takes us through all of the information on tax documents. Thanks for joining us on this ride here. If you're interested in learning more about taxes, especially how to think about income taxes more broadly, I made a video on that here. And if you are interested in learning a little bit about specific credits, deductions, how you can actually get your taxes lower and how to start filing them, you can see that video over here. That being said, y'all, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Thanks.